So we're going to get into all the good stuff today, talking about building a heart aligned brand. What does that look like? How does branding support the business structure? And what does it look like in practice? We often get very locked into our brand looks like something, but your brand is a way of being. It's a thing that exists and
Mhm.
it's interacting in the world. It's not stagnant thing.
I love it. It's such a good conversation. I think a lot of people struggle with it because when you think about rebranding too, it's
Mhm,
like, okay, where do I even
mhm,
start? What are,
mhm.
especially when you're first getting started, you have this vision of what your brand you think you want it to look like. And I think you hit on it that it should be a website or your social media, like it should be this living, breathing extension of you if you're the face of your business. But we miss the point in allowing it to be a living, breathing thing. We forget to remind ourselves that
Mhm.
you want a color to change it. You want to change your word of the year every year, right?
Right.
So how does your business feed into that word of the year, right? So it's
Yeah.
meant to live and evolve. I think we limit it a lot of times.
Completely. Okay, cool. So, for anyone who is new to who you are, tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about who you are, what you do, all the good things.
All the good things. Well, for one, my name is Sarah. I am a lot of things. I will lead with who I am. At my core, I am gosh, this is such a good question. I didn't even think this through, but I was like, because I talk about this. I talk about how we walk into a room meeting people for the first time and we lead with who we are, like what we do. Yeah, I'll start with the things that are important to me most. I'm a mom. I'm a wife of 20, I guess it's gonna be 20 years this year. Can you believe that?
Congrats.
That's huge.
Love that.
No, it's so huge. And I am a business owner. I come from various backgrounds. I am a creative. I am a spiritual seeker. Ooh, always working on myself.
Mhm.
Always. Always, always, always. And I have been consistently, I'd say, for the last decade. And I
Mhm.
never in a million years could have imagined how that has flowed into my business and how much my spiritual practice and my grounding practice has really set the foundation of how I show up in business. And I think there
Mm.
was a part of me that knew that was the essential piece before I even dipped my toe into entrepreneurship. Like I had to have that grounding practice. And so for me, I'm very lucky it worked out in that order. I had already started sort of working on parts of me before
Mhm.
I implemented those, values, I guess we'll call them, into my business. So in business, since that's what we're here to talk about, I started out as an interior design studio. And pretty much since I started, I have been evolving the business slowly over time, becoming different things, different titles, always founder and CEO. But the industry has sort of changed, as you know, Leanne.
Welcome to the Heart Aligned brand. I'm your host, Leanne, brand strategist, photographer, and mentor with over 5 years' experience helping women and queer owned businesses build brands rooted in their truth. This is a space for thoughtful conversations about building a business that actually supports your life, where strategy meets self trust and success doesn't require self abandonment. You are a seeker of understanding yourself. That's
Mm,
sort of at the heart of what it is that you do and how you approach life. Um, you and I are very similar in that, right? We are like a pursuer of deeper meaning, deeper understanding, development, all of that good stuff. Let's talk about when did you start? What was
27.
that like? And how has that shifted today? So if high level we were to look at it and say, okay, Sarah, this was me when I started and this is what I've learned over the years. This is how I show up in my business.
Yeah. So I will say I started my business in 2017 after working in corporate. I was a project manager in the healthcare sector for many years. And I was, at the time, didn't realize it was a gift, but I was put on a project that was so incredibly boring. I mean, I'm talking like weeks would go by before emails would really start circulating for when our team would be engaged. And I was pregnant at the time. And so all of these things were sort of shifting in my life, becoming a mom for the first time, starting to feel this like ick in the corporate world, always having a desire to start my business. And I sort of just jumped in as most creatives do. We just start doing it on the side. There was no real business plan, there was no structure. It was just, I'm going for it. And I
Mhm.
did. And I'd say for the first 5 years, I was flying by the seat of my pants on all of it. I mean, and I think that's just common and very
Yeah.
natural. When you're starting out, you don't always have the resources, financial or whatever kind of support to learn the right way to do things. And I really kind of hate that phrase, anyways, because there really is no right way. I think
Mhm.
we need the struggles, we need the bootstrapping, we need the I don't know what I'm doing moments to really learn from them and grow from them and become something better. I know when you and I first worked together, I think I was thinking about this question and that time because I think I leaned on you a
Mhm.
lot
Mhm.
for direction. It was like, I don't really know. Here's some images on Pinterest that I like, and I think that this could work. There was no real, for a lack of a better word, maybe like confidence from my end.
Yeah.
I had never been photographed by someone
Mhm.
other than like, a selfie with my family. You know what I mean? Like there was
Mhm.
no professional moment that I've ever had. So there was just this like meek, quiet little self that just didn't really know what she was doing for
Mhm.
a long time.
Mhm.
Now there's lots of things I have learned over the years. I don't know, nothing specific is coming in this moment, but how I have evolved and going back to our recent interaction, our recent branding photos, I think there was a huge difference from that first one.
Mhm.
Especially just like something as simple as like knowing what is my natural smile,
Yeah.
right? I
Yep.
think when we first worked together, I was like forcing it. It was weird. I'm a more of a smirker. I don't really,
Yeah.
show my teeth real big and wide. Like, so there was just this like more quiet confidence. It wasn't like an over the top, like, I got this. It was just like, okay, I remember this from last time. And I
Mhm.
think that just kind of goes back to what I'm saying. Like, you need those moments of not knowing what the hell you're doing to figure it out. And so, I mean, that's just one little example, but I'm happy to dive deeper if you are looking for something a little more specific that I can go into.
Well, I really like what you're speaking to because a lot of times there's this pressure to have it figured out, to have the answer. And one of the most honest, truest parts of owning a business, being a woman owning a business, is there isn't a clear understanding of how to do it. And a lot of people are making sort of by the seat of your pants decisions. And a lot of us don't feel good in that, and there's this feeling of like I'm not doing it right and I need to show up in a certain way in order to do it right. I want more people to know is that superpower and the magic of your business lies in who you are. And part
Mhm.
of what gets you to that point is that uncomfortable middle. It's where you're stumbling and you're like, I'm doing this. When we worked together this last time, to your point, there was this acquired confidence. I can be here. I can show up in this way. I can show up in this space as I am. And that's good.
Yeah. And I think another thing I'll add to that is not just being in the messy middle, but, one of the greatest gifts I've done for myself is learning how to hear, acknowledge, and trust my own intuition, my own inner
Yeah.
guidance. Know that intuition is such a buzzword these days, but it really is the thing, right? I was always the type of person, no matter what the situation was, in business, I'm talking picking a restaurant. Okay. Like easy decision making for me was always a challenge. And that
Hmm.
stems from things in my childhood that never really having a voice, or if I
Hmm.
did have an input, it was squashed right away. So, they have worked through, but like, yeah, it showed up in my business for sure in making decisions, always looking to other people and what other people are doing
Hmm.
and sort of letting that form who you become, I
Hmm.
think is one of the mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make. And I understand there's a need to do that. There's a need to kind of be guided and followed, but it's finding that person or that group of people that really align with what's true for you.
Hmm.
I work with the same coach that I worked with back in 2016.
Hmm.
And I've only really had that realization recently where there's so much noise out there that I could just follow, take a course, learn from this one. But following one or two people for an extended period of time and really learning for them. One of my themes this year, it's not necessarily a word of the year, but one of my themes this year is to go deeper, not wider. I've heard Jenna Quinter say that before. And it really resonated with me because I was that type of person where I'll try this and I'll try this and I'll try this. But now I've narrowed down to just being, where can I go deep for myself? And how does that show up in my business? How does it show up in, you know, just everyday tasks? Can I go deeper and not wider? Because when you're first starting out, before you start onboarding support, you are wearing all the hats, as we know. So I've learned along the way is honing in on my own inner voice. What's really important to me, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of times that I go the complete opposite of what the masses are doing. And at first it's a little uncomfortable. You're like, I don't know, I'm doing it wrong. But the more I've trusted myself and the more it's been revealed after trusting myself that it was the right decision for me, it's been a game changer in how I move through my life and of business.
I love that. You're right. Intuition is such a buzzword right now. I want to talk a little about how did you baby step your way into following that voice and the intuition you have? If you could tell one person right now, this is how you can start hearing what your voice is, knowing, where would you tell them to start within business and how does that bleed into your life? Because everything is connected and we can't ignore how our businesses support our life.
I'm going to sort of plug someone here, but
Love it. Go for it.
I studied under Kim Chesney for several years, and she is the leader in this work from
Okay.
quantum physics to understanding your intuition. She runs an amazing program. It used to be called Intuition Lab. I think she recently just renamed it, and I don't have that at the top of mind. But if you Google Kim Chesney, everything is there that you would need. Learning how to hear it because everybody hears it differently. In fact, her book, Radical Intuition, is a great point to start
Okay.
with because
Cool.
she talks about all the ways it's different for every person. I have a good story as an example of following intuition. So, as you know, Leanne, I've been moving over the last several years and grateful to have a husband that can financially support us. Even with that, though, moving 2 states, buying and selling 2 homes in 2 years, your finances are going to take a hit. I don't care how much money you're making. So,
Yeah.
I was up against this moment in time where it was like, okay, I guess I need to get a job because I wasn't working, I still had my business, but for me, the move was my great big pause. Okay, you need to pause, figure this out. And I was feeling that itch of evolution where interior design just doesn't feel like it's really the right fit anymore. It had its time. I want to step into this, but who am I? All the voices started coming up for me. And so for 11 months, I didn't do anything. And I'm really grateful to have had that. But, they say answers come in stillness, right? Talking about intuition, trying to find those moments to get still. I had a really long pause to figure it out. Once we got to Florida, a year later, then that's when the realization came. There's no more time for pause. Like, I need to get things moving. I started thinking about getting a job because my business was still in that transition phase. I wasn't sure what it looked like yet. So, hearing my intuition, I was standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes, and I just had this drop in that just said, start with the women already on your path. And it was clear as day. I wasn't thinking about what am I going to do? I wasn't asking a question in my mind. It just dropped in. That's intuition when it just hits you out of nowhere. And I knew exactly what it meant. It was who can you help? Who can you serve? Who can you support? I reached out to 2 women in my network and said, hey, I'm looking for work. I really don't want to go have to get a job at Costco if I don't have to. No shame. I'll do what I need to do, but I kind of don't want to. I like working from home. I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep this business afloat, dot, dot, dot. And so I reached out to those 2 women, explained my situation. Do you have any work that you could send my way? I have a lot of skills. I'm an entrepreneur. I know what you need. I can probably handle it. And I was 2 for 2. They both said yes. And the rest is history. And so out of that came a second business called Tast. And so it's virtual support for online businesses, predominantly women. And I started with those 2 clients. I now have a consistent client Rolodex of 8, and I've grown my community to almost 35 women, all in like 10 months. So, I mean, that's what I mean by intuition first. Without hearing that drop in, none of that entire last year would not have been for me. I'd probably be at Costco.
I really appreciate your honesty because this is another thing that I wish more people would talk about. It's so easy to fall into the, I'm going to say illusion, but I say that word not as a way of like a negative because we do need to have dreams. But, you know, there was a period and there still is where it's told to us that like, you could have this in such a small amount of time and you're going to meet that success that, you know, 6-figure, 7-figure within the year. We've got it. And there's just not enough honesty about the silent privilege, that's how I'm calling it, that
Yeah.
actually lends itself to this outward success. And everyone's starting in a different place. And as small business owners, you know, wherever you are on your path, it can feel like you're behind and it can feel like you're not legitimate if you're not meeting that mark. And I appreciate your honesty on I took the pause. Also, let's just like be mindful of the fact that you moved twice in that. Like as a small business owner that was very location based because you were an interior designer, that was the main thing, right? It was interior design. Okay, good. I just want to make sure wasn't leaving out like exterior design. To move away to 2 different locations, it's not like you could just pick up your business and take it and drop it into a new location. It's like,
Yeah.
no. So you're starting from square one in a way. You've got all of your years of experience, but you still have to build that network. So you're at this point where you're like, okay, I gotta do something. And that moment of clarity came in and it was just start with the people that you know and you followed that intuition piece, right? One of the things that I work with my clients on a lot whenever I'm working with them on that strategy piece before we get to the photography is that it's like take the action. You have to take the action. And so many of us want to perfect it and we want to shine it up before we put it out into the world because we're perfectionists at heart, a lot of us, you know, but also it's a form of like procrastination and like rejection proofing yourself. As long as you live in the place of like, well, I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. Like there's
Yeah.
never that point where you have to know if it's going to actually work out. And I think if there's anything that anyone could take from just what you said was like you got that ping and you did it,
Yeah.
right? You took that step and you were like, here I am. This is what I got for you. And it worked. And you know, this is something that reason why this is standing out to me is because this is something that I'm also working on right now is following my intuition, following joy, following ease. Because for me, as someone who similar, like past all of these things that kind of play into who you become, I always approached life very seriously, right? Like that was my survival mechanism was I'm serious. This is how we're going to get things done. I'm going to like protector, survivor, all of that. Right. And it shadowed this other side of me, which was fun, playful, light, quirky, like just kind of living out there. And in the last year, because I also kind of pulled back the reins a little bit. I mean, I was still full time in my business, but I was just kind of like observing what my business was. I realized, maybe the answer is just having a thought and then doing it. And obviously running it through the brand, right? Because we do want to make sure that we're staying consistent with that. We want to make sure that we're staying rooted in our values, but just letting things exist. And an example for me recently was I was thinking about headshot sessions and I constantly am getting requests for headshot sessions, but like people are just like, I just need something quick. I just need something quick. And that when you sit down and you run the numbers, it is not profitable. And that's something a lot of people don't understand. Like it still takes the same amount of work to show up for you to do this as it does for someone who is like, I'm putting more time in, like if, you know, nuance to that. So I was like, okay, I get these requests. Those people ultimately, like, they are going to always want that, need that. And it just came to me. I was like, basic bitch. Like, I'm your basic bitch. And I was like, that's it. Here we go.
So good.
Because it just, and this is something that's very true to who I am. I do say that all the time because I make fun of myself. I love just being like silly and using pop culture references that a lot of white women will get made fun of for. And I was like, let me just use this because that's who it is. And one of the pieces to bring this back to who we are, honoring who we are, and then also bringing this back to our business and our brand component of that is trusting ourselves more, like you mentioned, and just taking the action to see. And so many of us are so focused on the end result that we are not taking enough action to know, to even have the information to make
Yeah.
decisions that
Yeah.
really are in our best benefit.
Totally. And, what really happened from that, because, after I took action, it then kind of like hit me like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not the same. Like, this is like a totally different direction
Yeah.
from, interior design, which evolved into coaching. I have this whole philosophy of mind, body, home, and how all three of them interplay, that home is the missing piece to your spiritual alignment. And,
Mhm.
what's so incredible about following that one little breadcrumb, that's what Kim, she likes to call it, is following the breadcrumbs, is now I have found that the virtual assistants that I'm doing with these women and Mind Body Home, they are finding their path together. And
Mhm.
so it's like I'm supporting two different ideas, but they all support and weave in and out of each other. Mind, body, home plus business.
Yeah.
The end of the day, I support overwhelmed women at home who feel overwhelmed by home and they're struggling for that work-life balance. And then I'm supporting overwhelmed women in business. And so just by following that one piece and taking the action, that first coach I was talking about, she always said, with action comes clarity. And I
Yeah.
never forgot that. That sticks
Mhm.
with me. And yeah, just taking that one little action has now, it's made my other business that I was struggling with, it's given it more clarity. It's like, oh, these are the people I support,
Mhm.
right? Because for a long time, that's always the struggle. Who do I support? Who's my audience? Who's the target? Right. And that too, like your brand, like your business, that can also evolve. And what I found really to be interesting, and I'm curious if you have too, is the woman that I support is like me 5 years ago, right? Because, at least in like the coaching sector, they tell you like, you just need to like have that 10% edge, right? How can you help people? What do you have just 10% edge on people that you can help them? Or if you're looking for support, it's like, who's just a little ahead of you that you
Mhm.
can trust and follow and sort of, help guide you? And so I have found that through both of these. And so it's really just I've told this story many times, but now that I'm like repeating it, it's like still I'm like sitting here like, my God, like one sentence that I could have very easily dismissed
Yeah.
if I didn't understand what that was. But because of that development, that practice that Kim teaches, I can't plug her enough because people, even clients of mine, they'll ask if there was one thing you've done on your, self-development journey. Because I'm, again, in the coaching world, what is it? And I always refer them back to Kim and the work she does and the community she has. It's an amazing, amazing thing. It has supported me in life and business. You learn to become your own guru. You no longer have to look outside for the answer. It's already there. You just have
Mhm.
to trust yourself that it is.
Mhm. Completely. And yeah, I would say the same when I work with coaches because I'm a huge advocate for investing in yourself in whatever capacity that is, as well as like I understand that coaching has a lot of opinions about it. I think that ultimately we have agency over how we decide to move and groove. And so I've made lots of investments, some fantastic, some I was like, that wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, but okay, still learned something. And one of the things that my coach said to me last year, I think, she was like, one of the things that is your strength is everything that you are sharing is lived. You've been to the fire, you've come out, and now you are sharing from this place of, I get it. I see you. I
Yes.
know what's going on, and that has always been the way that I kind of just exist is like, I'm going to tell you what the real
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna be like, but guess what? You can do it too. You can get through. Like, you're gonna find the answer. I would say we're always, because I mean, like, how can you not? Like, how can you not be in
Yeah.
the trenches and in the journey?
It's hard for some people because they think, especially, and this is good, like advice, what you're saying, that your lived experience is the answer, because so many people think, I need another credential. I need to get another training. I need to understand this. I'm not ready. I don't, who am I? I don't have this experience. They think they're constantly chasing courses and learning and all of that. But like, your lived experience is your credibility, right? And that also is a trust factor,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Trusting that what you learned from your own experience, the whole reason you had that experience and the whole reason you had to learn something is so that you can share it with other people. That is your gift. That is what moves the world to a better place.
mhm,
And so that, yeah, I love that. Your lived experience, that is your credibility. You don't need another certification. You don't need more education. You have everything that you have.
mhm,
Right. I started in interior design, and I struggled with this, starting interior design. I struggled with that imposter syndrome because
mhm,
I didn't go to school for design. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed decorating my own home. And you saw this like rise in the industry of that with Instagram,
mhm,
right? Home bloggers just like doing their thing. And so that's what I was looking at. That was the shiny object for me. Well, if they can do it, I can do it. But really, home design just took like a whole different evolution for me. And now the work I'm doing now, where it's more intentional living, it's slower living, it's, what does design look like for you? That feels better for me. Right. Whereas, just clients showing you a Pinterest board and it's like, I like this, but they have no real understanding as to why they like it. I always would get kind of frustrated by that. And I never understood it at the time, but now it makes sense because now it's more about alignment
mhm.
and intention and slower living. That feels better to me.
It does, and I think what you're hearkening to, which is exactly what I do in my work, which is, how are we being intentional about the life that we are designing? And as business owners, if we are not prioritizing designing a business that is centered around heart alignment, why are we doing it? Like, what is
Mm,
the point? What are
yeah.
what, you know? And this is my, like, more direct part where I'm like, "But why?" You could do
Mhm.
something that's so much easier, where you're not having to be the boss, you're not having to have the discipline, you're not gonna have to, like, really face yourself if you don't really want to, and that would be cool. But if you're gonna be a business owner, why not? Why not have a business that feels right to you, you know? And I think the piece of it which resonates in what you're talking about with the home design piece, is that when you started into the home design, there was this, I want to say, superficiality, in the sense that, like, we see it and we're like, that's what I want. I want my house to look like that. Here's my Pinterest board. This is it. And when we get to the root of it, it's like, but why? Why that? For you, you were like, I'm irked by this. I don't understand. And now it's come full circle where, oh, this is why, because it wasn't connected to them. It was just sort of like, this is what this person, or this is what this looks like on someone else. And so I think this will look good on my life. And then you just like copy and paste it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the theme of what we're talking about is
Yeah.
looking outside of ourselves for the answer.
Yeah.
Right. And even interior design, I think another thing as business owners that we're afraid to do is pivot. We're
Yeah.
afraid to pivot and evolve. We think we're somehow a failure if the first attempt or the first shot at business didn't work out. I don't, knowing at the time, I can tell you, I thought that for myself, thinking I was a failure. Funny story. You took my photographs right before I went full time as an interior designer. Because remember, we did like the champagne popping because I was like, I'm leaving my job
Yes.
in September. So I want to get a picture when the day comes. And it was so wild to me. All this prep and planning, like my password at work, my corporate job was leaving in 2021. I always remembered that. That was my password. It was like my mantra every day that I'm leaving this in 2021 and with an exclamation point. I think there was an exclamation
Of
point at
course.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did. I actually checked it because I was like, was it 2021? And I looked back on that post of that picture you and I took. It was September 2021. It wasn't after all the excitement wore off. It was maybe a few months into full time entrepreneurship is when I started feeling like, I'm not sure if I want to do this. And I remember thinking, how am I going to tell my husband? I just left like a really nice paying job and career to do this. And now I don't even know if it's what I want to do.
Mhm.
It was so scary. And I sat with that alone for so long,
Mhm.
afraid to share it, feeling like I was somehow a failure. Because I've always been like, I like to change things up often, but I always thought there was something wrong with me because I wanted to do that. Why couldn't I just make a decision? Why can't I just stick with something for a while? That was kind of my theme. But then I just eventually just owned it. That's just who I am. I like to
Yeah.
try different things and I'll figure out how they all come together. They always do. Right? And
Mhm.
some things might need to fall away and some things might be like the biggest breakthrough. I don't know. I think just putting yourself out there and being willing to try and just giving yourself the grace to pivot, I think is so important.
I think too, it comes back to this idea of like honesty and just being very, very real in especially I feel service-based businesses and when we're talking about like the coaching industry or, the gurus and stuff, I do feel that there's been sort of like this fall away of a little bit more honesty about that, pivoting and changing
Mhm.
and the recognition that your brand is going to evolve and shift. And as you're trekking along, like you're going to make decisions. I know for me, because I started my business in it's 2017. I decided I was going to do it full time. Well, I started 2016, but I paused after my mother passed and made the decision like hardcore was like, we're going in, we're doing this. Started working on the weekends and in evenings. And then I went full time in 2018 and I was like, gung ho, I'm going to be a family photographer. This is it. Everything around my brand identity was family photography, all of it. But I also very quickly started to fall into branding somehow. I probably saw it somewhere and I was like, this sounds interesting. I think I like this. I think this feels way better. Because this whole time I was just like, I was doing it and I was like, something's not working. Something's not working. Why? And I was so passionate about it and I cared, but it just wasn't clicking. And right before 2020, will not forget, that was the year because I had made the decision. I was like, you know what? It's time. You've spent all this time building this family photography thing and you just need to flip. Like, you can't. We're not doing this. And I did. I flipped completely. Then the pandemic happened. And I was like, well, that's cool. Love this for me. Thanks for that, COVID. And it was the best decision I could have made for myself, but I made the flip, changed my branding, but I was still holding on to family. And I was still holding on to like, kind of like, I was second shooting for weddings and I was like, okay, I've got that. And then anybody would hire me for anything. And I finally, after I think in 2022 or it was 2023, I went all in. I was like, you know what? No, you're a brand photographer. You work with women in business, queer owned businesses, and then brand strategy. And I took my family photography out. I completely pulled it away. And it was the best decision I could have made because that's when everything started to kind of feel more locked in. And so I think to your point, we have to give ourselves permission to do that, even if it feels really scary,
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
can be the best thing.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in that great pause, you were mentioning how interior design is so location based. That was the struggle. It was like, do I really want to like set up shop here again? At the time it was Texas. And I was like, no, not really. I don't think I do. I was like, well, maybe I'll just niche in window treatments because the profit margins are good in window treatments. So we bought a house there. I installed some window treatments and I was like, this isn't fun anymore. Like, I didn't even want to do it for my own house. So how am I going to like do it for somebody else? So I was like, okay, I'm not doing window treatments. And then I actually, like, the one friend I made in Texas was a neighbor who was she was becoming an interior designer. And when we packed up to leave Texas, I was like, I called her up. I said, I'm leaving interior design in Texas. I'm not doing this. Like, we're headed to Florida. I'm not picking it up. I'm letting it go. And I gave her all of my samples and equipment and whatever I could, things that I made heavy investments in. And I was just like, I'm letting it go. I'm just letting it go. And I did. And then I moved to Florida and this was kind of do I go work at Costco? What do I do? It was like that moment that I just put it out there in my local community, like on our Facebook neighborhood page, like, hey, just letting you know I'm an interior designer. Like I put it out there and I got one hit for a paint consultation and I did it and I hated it. I was like, okay, I think the message is clear. I no longer want to do this
Yeah.
at all. And here's the thing, like I still love design. I still love color. I love working with all the things, but I don't want to do it as a service anymore. It was my final answer. And that was the last client project I did. And if you were to go to my website now, you'll still see some things on there, but that's because I've been working on my new website, which, gosh, hopefully by the end of this month it will be out, which has 0 design offerings on there. So I'm really excited, but it takes time to build up that like confidence to just be done with it.
Mhm.
But it's not something that's going to happen overnight. Like give yourself grace, just ease into it.
As far as like your business and your day to day, and we can connect this to kind of like boundaries, choices, trade offs. What does living a heart aligned, building a heart aligned business actually look in your day to day life in practice? Because that's one of the things we've talked about, right? Is your
Yeah.
brand, it's a nuanced being, as is your business. They both play together. Your brand is your business is your brand, right? So, in your day to day, as you're making decisions, as you're going through, what does it look like to live in that heart aligned space?
I mean, for me, you know, it really comes down to a blending of my personal life and my professional life.
Mhm.
I mean, what I share with the world professionally is how I live my own life. And I know that might not be the case for everyone, but I think if we're talking specific to heart aligned brands, I think it does in some way, right? Because there are businesses out there that you're just in business to make money, right?
Right.
But to me, it's a way of living.
Hmm.
And so my day to day looks like what's important to me. My business is important to me, but so is, as I started this conversation, being a mom. Having a clean and orderly environment is important to me. Tending to my needs first, then tending to everyone else. So, I wake up at 5:30. I give myself 45 minutes before everyone's up and I spend time alone. Some days that looks like meditation. Some days that looks like yoga. Some days that just looks like sitting in the dark and letting my mind think because I can't shut it off, right? Like every day is different. And then for 2 hours after that, it's all focused on the kids and getting them ready for school and preparing lunches and breakfast. And then I give myself another hour after they're gone to do exactly that, tend to my environment, clean off my desk, throw a load of laundry. I am very grateful to work from home that I have the capability to do this. I know that's not easy for everyone. Tend to my home, fluff the pillows on the couch, empty the dishwasher, get the dishes cleaned up. And then I go into my office and I work intentionally. I usually do some preparing the night before, sort of outlining, okay, what actually needs done tomorrow.
Hmm.
And I love a good checklist. So I love writing things out and crossing them off. So that's important to me. So my day to day is what I share with my audience and my client is how to set up your day in a way that supports whatever it is, whether you have a business or whether you just have a traditional 9 to 5, your home environment, your mental state, your physical well being, like that's all priority number one. And when the 3 of those are tended to, everything else just flows, in my opinion.
Really love that. And again, you and I are very much on that same wavelength as far as prioritizing self care and prioritizing intentionality. I was recently listening to NPR, and there was a woman. She's an expert in solitude. And so we get solitude, like the negative side of solitude, but she's someone who actually focuses on studying positive solitude. And the piece that stood out to me the most was that the interviewer, he was like, everything that you're saying is very counterculture to, to prioritize yourself, to prioritize time. And I wanted to like scream at at my radio. Why is this counterculture? But the more that I think about it, I'm like, oh no, this actually really is, we are kind of on fringe. And I think a lot of people have this idea that to have time for yourself and to prioritize and to be intentional, like there's a certain level of privilege. And I'm not disagreeing with that. There is. However, I'm also of the mind that we are always making choices, and those choices are a yes and a vote for one thing, and when we vote yes here, we're saying no to something else. And so,
Yeah.
what would you say to a business owner who is hearing what you're saying about carving out that time, but they're still very locked into this idea that they don't have enough time? What would you say to them to kind of give them a challenge, that way of thinking?
It's one of the things I say this often, and I think it applies to business and just life in general is you prioritize what's important to you, right? So if you're constantly feeling overwhelmed, if you're constantly feeling frustrated or irritated that there's not enough time, and you're feeling resentful because you have all these things to do and you never make time for them, well, you must be prioritizing them. And there's something underneath that you feel is more important than maybe doing it the opposite way. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? Did I explain that right?
Yeah.
So it's really looking at what is important to you, and maybe you have those reversed. And so, how can you challenge yourself to think about the things that you are prioritizing a little differently? There's
Mhm.
been many times I've prioritized my clients over myself.
Mhm.
You know, I'll skip my morning walk because I saw an email come through and I need to answer it right away. Or I'll, skip my, quiet time because I slacked the night before and, didn't prepare myself for the day. So I want to get in there and get started, right?
Mhm.
That's prioritizing someone else over me. And so it's really, and I think too, it's questioning yourself and where are your priorities? What do you feel is most important? But then I also think it is then, kind of looking at it from the opposite angle and getting clear. Like so many people, they read about these things, they talk about these things, but I don't think they do the action piece, right? They don't take the
Yeah.
action piece, you know, a mindful moment to just write it down,
Mhm.
get clear, get it out of your head, get it onto paper or a notepad on your laptop, or however you need to do it. And I think it's a micro practice. I think
Yes.
when we want something to change, it's got to be big and drastic.
Mm-mm.
It could be as simple as just literally enjoying a cup of coffee alone, quietly, not while you're working, not taking it into the office with you, just really being present with it. Smell it, feel it, taste it, like just notice it, right? Like it's really these simple micro practices that compound over time. So just getting that clarity is going to be huge for changing your behaviors.
I completely agree with you. I think it really, I like the way you describe it, micro changes. I recently put out a podcast where I was talking about 5% better. Like, what's one action that you could take right now that's going to make your life 5% better or your business 5% better? Because to your point, we always feel that change has to be this momentous big thing, and if we're not doing it that way, it doesn't count. But it's change truly does happen in the smallest steps and the smallest action, one foot right in front of the other. And when we're talking about building a business that's heart aligned and a brand that's heart aligned and giving yourself the space to create that intentionality, that's where we make those little changes that are going to have the most impact. I want to talk about like boundaries, choices, trade offs, because I really like how that just supports this idea of building a business that's like supporting and all around holistic. In the morning, you give yourself 45 minutes of quiet time to kind of just really reflect and be in that space with yourself. And then you have 2 hours with your family and you're like doing that. And then when you come home, you're getting everything tidying and then you're moving into the next phase. I'm very curious about how do you structure and create boundaries for yourself and your clients? Because to your point that you just mentioned, sometimes you'll see that email come through and then your time pressure, like, I have to respond, I have to do this. So how do you practice boundaries with yourself? And then how do you practice boundaries with your clients in order to
Well,
support?
yeah, I mean, boundaries with the self and with clients, but predominantly with the self, it has to come first with self. And I think, again, it's a micro practice.
Mhm.
You have to practice putting boundaries in place to keep you sane, to be honest,
Yeah.
to keep you sane is having that intentionality. It's how can you be as clear as possible? This is a little bit more for the client part, but in your email signature, what are your availability hours? Put it right in there. If a client needs to get in contact with you, do they know how? Right? I have
Mhm.
it all in there. My email signature has everything.
Yep.
It has the hours I'm there. It's from 10 to 3. And sometimes I answer emails outside of those hours or I take calls outside of those hours. But, the link to schedule an appointment with me is within those hours.
Mhm.
So it's just, you can create it in simple ways like that. At home, I have a really supportive family. I don't have to really put up too many boundaries, at least with them. If I need to work in the evening or I need to get caught up on things, it's very simple. I need to work tonight. And again, grateful for a husband who supports and is available to do that. But I think the boundary, I think if I were talking boundaries, it's more like if anyone's going to break a boundary, it's going to be myself.
Mhm.
So it's just about constant awareness of, am I prioritizing something that violates my boundary? And, we're not always aware of when we're doing that. But when you catch yourself, really try to do something different, to put a different practice in place, to call yourself out. Like, I think sometimes we just need that. We just need to call ourselves out on our own little bullshit moment,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. Yeah, because you can have the awareness, but if you don't take the action to change the behavior, then you're just going to keep doing it, essentially.
Completely.
So I hope that answered your question.
It does. No, it's really good. And just to solidify that just a little bit more, what's one boundary you've given yourself, if you can think of one, in the past, let's say 6 months, or even just thinking about the new year and how you want to kind of function,
Mm,
that has been really beneficial for you in supporting you?
that's a good question. I'm feeling a little caught off guard. Do you have one that you could share first?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe it'll inspire something within me.
Yes. So
No pressure to turn the question on you.
no. It's okay because this is something that I have thought about quite a lot, and so for me, one of the very first boundaries that I made for myself was that I would no longer check email evening,
Mm,
and that really was quite impactful because I realized how much I was checking my email for any client communication. B, I saw that I was always on and I never really turned it off, like my brain off. And so I just was like, no. And I think that started in 2024. I was like not checking my email after like 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock. It just depends. Sometimes it fluctuates. And that's been something that's been really, really helpful because a part of it, again, coming back to this idea, like if we're in business for ourselves, then why are we acting like corporate America?
mhm.
And my partner will always, she's just like, your boss is kind of a bitch. And I say that in the most loving way that you can as a woman using that term. But I was like, she is. She needs to chill. Give me a break.
Me. Yeah, no, email totally, totally. And I would say I've like halfway set that boundary, the
Mhm.
same one with email because I open my email on my phone or my laptop a million times a day, so out of habit, and I catch up. I set that boundary of not replying to emails in the evening, but I do still check it. Now, on a similar note, something I have done, and I go off and on back and forth with it, is I'll do the same thing with social media. Just opening the app and scrolling for like 2 seconds, instantly being annoyed and then getting off of it. A boundary I had to set with that was just completely removing it from my phone. Like, I wanted to make it hard for me to, like, I'd have to get on my laptop and open it up on there, which, it's just not as convenient.
Mm-mm.
Another one that was very helpful, just since we're talking about, like, basically talking about phone and social media addiction here, is putting my phone once everybody's home, the workday is done, the phone goes into the bedroom. And it's interesting because when I've done that, I think for a lot of people, we always have our phones on them because we don't have landlines anymore, and some of us might have family members that need to get a hold of us. And so we need to have access. We need to know if someone's getting in touch with us. But 9 times out of 10, nobody's really getting in touch with us.
Right.
So moving my phone into my bedroom has been really game changing. And if I don't do it, I notice it. I'm cooking dinner, waiting for the pasta water to boil. And I'm like, looking at something
Mhm.
mindlessly,
Mhm.
just because it's there. But I have found if you just literally remove the device from your eyesight, it helps tremendously.
Mhm.
So I think it just, again, we keep talking about intentionality. Just how do you want to spend your time? Living more mindfully, being intentional about your time, doing things with intention, right? Sipping that coffee, cooking, and being present
Mhm.
with the boiling water,
Mhm.
right? Like, what a perfect time to just like go pick something that really needs your attention instead
Yeah.
of, eyeballing something on your phone.
Or even just practice being bored. Like, I have found being bored that so many of us are struggling with these days.
Yes.
As people who grew up, like, before the internet really took off and before we had social media and, like, a mini computer in our hands, as kids, we know that, but, like, as adults, I don't know, being bored is one of the things that I'm working with, so being present with that boiling water.
Yes.
Let's just be bored
Yes.
for a second.
Totally. And it's a struggle when, with kids,
Mm,
kids of this generation growing up with devices to their availability at whatever point. And I see it with my kids and I have to tell them, put it down,
yeah.
just be present. I mean, we have boundaries as a family, some pretty general ones, like no phones at the dinner table. We come together at the dinner table most nights.
1 second, I'm gonna move. My sun's coming in right on my face, making me look like a ghost with Okay, better.
There you go. That's better.
I completely agree with you. I think it is just it's a practice. It's something that we have to keep working on for all of us. As your brand has evolved, as you have evolved as a person, how are you embodying that in your brand and how is that showing up online for you?
Well, it really stems from the last photo session that you and I did together. Those images, I feel, really capture the woman and the business owner that I want to become.
Mhm.
Right? I don't think I'm all the way there yet when we're talking about confidence and visibility and all of that stuff. That still has work to do, but there's a determination on my part that feels like when I look at those pictures, I'm like, that's the woman I'm going to be. Like, that's
Mhm.
who I want to show up as. And
Mhm.
so I like that idea for, your audience and your client too, that it might not be representative of who you are right now,
Mhm.
right? But who do you want to be? Like, show up as that woman for your
Yeah.
photos. And then you're constantly reminded every time you go to your website, every time you open your social media, every time you work on any of your branding, you're being shown that woman. It's almost like your photo shoot becomes your personal brand vision board in a
Mhm.
sense. So that's been really interesting to watch and to notice
Mhm.
in the last several months. Like, as I'm working on my website, which I mentioned, I'm hoping by the end of the month will be done. I'm like, I can't wait to get this bitch out there. Like, and like you said, I mean, bitch in the most delicious way. Like, I am so proud of the woman I see on the screen, like what she's been through, what she's overcome. Like, I can't wait for the world to meet her,
Mhm.
essentially. So I think, and how do I embody it? Like, she is my example. She
Mhm.
is like, that's who I want to show up to be. And so it's sort of like I run everything I'm doing, whether it's my email, whether, an email marketing newsletter that's going out, or just a simple email that I'm sending to a client. Like, is that coming from the voice of this woman? You
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So it's just like I use her as my filter almost,
Love
to
that.
run. Yes, I love them. I'm so obsessed with them.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And I wanna say too, just to, like, tap into this piece of it because you're highlighting something that I'm constantly advocating for with my clients is we are the architects of our life, our future, who we are becoming, and in this shoot, one of the things that I really loved is that you're just also giving yourself permission to be that person, right? Like
Mhm.
she exists in all of us and our version of whatever she is there. And it's just so many of us are so afraid to step into that because of all of the conditioning and thoughts and the voices. And when you can physically see, because that's a physical manifestation, right? The work that we did. And now you have this physical proof that she is there. She
Yeah.
exists And it's this reminder. So it's like like you're saying, like, I'm filtering through what would she say? What would she think? And it's almost like you're strengthening her. You're strengthening
Yeah,
that voice of her that's there, that you just haven't necessarily been ready to let take center stage, but she's taken center stage.
totally. Totally. And, we talked at the beginning about the first photo shoot we did. Gosh, that was like right after COVID. So I guess like 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's two totally different people.
Mhm, mhm,
Oh, and it was me. I was afraid to step into who I wanted to become because I didn't even know
mhm,
really at the
mhm.
time. I knew I needed headshots and I needed to like play the role of a designer, but that's what it was. I was playing the role. It was not me. And I know that now. But that's not to say that like I was just like I still loved those
Right.
photos, totally. But it's just to look at it retrospectively and to see like the evolution of it. Game changing,
Mhm.
totally different person, way more embodied, way more confident, way more bold, way more visible, like all these really juicy things that I'm just excited to keep building upon because I feel like, okay, well, I'm 43. I always have to ask my husband how old I am. 43. I'm always like a year off, but I am 43 and I'm like, wow, I'm just getting started.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
something about 40 was like, ooh, I still got like a whole life yet to
Mhm.
live. I have a lot of friends that are like afraid of getting, oh, we're 40. I'm like, I am happy to be done with my
Live
20.
it up.
I don't ever need to go back there. It was fun. Yeah, I did it, but I'm like, I'm feeling myself now.
Yes, I love that. Tell us where we can find you.
So you can find me online at jadescottdesign.com. That's where all the things exist. And that is like my hub, my nucleus. You can follow me on social media too. I'm not there predominantly. The website is best. And then my nugget of wisdom for anyone feeling
Unsure about where, like, they feel like their brand is no longer really jiving with them.
mm,
They wanna start shifting how they wanna show up, or they're feeling that call. What piece of advice would you give them to have the courage to, like, take the step?
yeah. So I think one, giving yourself grace and maybe even a little bit of forgiveness. I think sometimes we put some pressure on ourselves. Maybe things aren't working out the way we thought. Or again, like we said earlier, like we're afraid. We think that our business needs to stay the same.
Mhm,
And the idea of pivoting feels overwhelming. I know that's true for a lot of my clients. They're like, oh, I did all this branding when I first got started and it was just like so much work but get yourself some support. Leanne's a
mhm.
good start, right? Like
Hi.
she can certainly help you. And yeah, I think community too. Like that's
Mhm,
been so big for me is finding a place, whether it's online or in person, that you can share these, maybe their struggles, or
mhm,
maybe they are just like, ideas, right? Whatever they are, share it with people because you're going to realize that you are not alone. Everybody is struggling or thinking about the same exact things. And so, yeah, my piece of advice, which has been true for me, my lived experience, has been strong communities, seeking support before I feel ready.
mhm,
And because you're not meant to do it all alone, right? You're just not. And that's a hard lesson, I think, for entrepreneurs who a lot of us are perfectionists and
mhm.
we struggle with delegation. And yeah, so getting the support, finding a community, and yeah, just following your intuition. If you're feeling afraid to pivot, you're probably meant to.
Mhm.
So, uh,
Real quick, you were mentioning community, and I did wanna bring up, you have your monthly women gathered.
yes.
How can people jump into that if they wanna jump into that?
Yeah, I can share with you if you want to put it in like show notes or
Yes.
something, the opt in for that. Like it's
Okay,
like a
great.
landing. I don't know off the top of my head. It's big and long through Flowdesk. So I will share that with you. But
Okay,
yes, Women
perfect.
Gathered is a free monthly online community that we're slowly growing and trying to get more and more heart aligned businesses. But we usually pick a topic of the month. And it's just open conversation. We have women there who have been in business a long time. We have women that are just getting started, somewhere in the messy middle.
Mhm,
So it's sort of just a place to be seen, be heard, give support, receive support. all the things. So yes, I will share that link with you for people to sign up.